I love pigs.
I love it every time. Hello and welcome to Swine Chats. We're so glad you're here. I'm gonna get my words right. Hold on. We're just so excited we couldn't get it out. Like, it's Pig Month. It's our favorite month. So.
Oh, I love my pig calls.
That's right.
I gotta practice that.
My name is Brittany Sweeney. I'm with the Livestock Conservancy. I am the communications manager. We have some awesome people here with me today. We have Pork Rind and Rachel and Loretta. And would y'all like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Rachel. I have a farm in Kentucky, and I've been breeding old spots for 6 or 7 years now.
Hi, I'm Loretta, and I'm in I'm in North Central California, and I've been breeding Goss pigs for a little over 10 years, and really enjoy the breed.
Good. And my name is Ryan Kierton, aka Pork Rind. I am the Breed Association Manager for the Livestock Conservancy. So first off, I'm so excited that this is Pig Month. I know I said that in the last Swine Chat. I just want to again just say this is the best species ever. I don't care about all y'all chicken people. No, I love chicken people. Love chicken people. Never mind. I digress. Anyways, super excited to have Rachel and Loretta here to talk about Goss, aka the Gloucestershire Old Spot. First off, you know, I've been a part of pig world for at least 5 years, and people have all kinds of ways of saying the Gloucestershire Old Spot. Can you educate them on the right way? Is there a right way of saying it? And if there is, please educate these people, because they've been saying all kinds of things.
Well, the British...
Everyone has their own, but yeah, Loretta, go ahead.
The definitive British pronunciation would be Gloucestershire. Even though you see all those extra syllables, they say Gloucestershire Old Spots, plural.
What about you, Rachel?
When in doubt, just say old spots. Yeah.
Old spots. There you go. I like that.
Keep it simple.
I like that. Old spots. All right. So for this Swine Chat, we're just going to say old spots. Really easy, real simple. Can't go wrong with that. Perfect. Well, since you guys are here, I wanted to be able to kind of get some history on old spots. I was about to say it. Old spots, as well as gossip, the Gloucestershire Old Spot Association. What's kind of the history behind both the breed and the association that's doing work for conservation for this breed? Oh, and Rachel, you can go first, and Loretta, you can go second.
Okay, thanks. The breed originated in England in the 1880s. The registry formed in 1913. It's actually one of the, I think it's the oldest pedigreed pig in the world. And there are, some of those foundation animals, like a lot of these heritage breeds, have gone extinct. So it's really our only link back to some of that history, which is just so amazing and critical. But, they were known as an orchard pig. They just basically were little scavengers that lived behind people's cottages, and they would go into apple orchards in the fall and basically just clean up drop fruit. People say that they got their black spots from fruit falling on them. It was just a cute little, it's just a cute little story. But really, one of the critical things when we took pigs out of orchards, when we took them out of that system, we began to see more and more issues with diseases and things like that because you've got this rotting fruit. You've got this layer of rotting fruit beneath these orchards. And it really is a symbiotic effect, between these animals. Because everyone knows, that you have a roaster on the table with a pig in its mouth. They just go together. And when you break that up, when you break that up, something happens, something changes. And that is, one of the foundational pieces of their history. And we really can't forget that. Loretta, I'll let you speak to your own perspective on the matter.
Okay, so I'll pick it up in England. When they started declining, small farm pigs were just highly populated there until about World War I. After World War I, you started getting confinement pigs as being the way to go for raising mass amounts of pork. So that's why these outdoor breeds, these foraging breeds, fell so far out of favor, because they don't do well in confinement. So they started breeding pigs for that method of producing pork. And so the numbers really plummeted in England. And I think there was only a couple hundred registered there come around mid-60s or so. So the numbers really started dropping. And so they put in the effort to bring them back there. Meanwhile, in the U.S., we had a couple of imports, early 1900s and then later, but they weren't kept track of, pedigrees weren't kept track of, and lines, pigs weren't registered. So in 1995, there was a big import of 20 pigs, female and male lines, through Robin Metcalf and her Kelmscott Conservancy project. So we've been trying to keep them up ever since. But once again, just 10 years ago, the U.S. only had 4 female lines registered that we could trace. So it's hard to keep up, keep up the registration and make sure the breed is a success when you don't have a lot of good communication and good information on why it's so important to do so. So here we are again. There's been 2 importations since 2016. So hopefully we're resurging and bringing the breed back. We recently, as you know, we delivered 5 different female lines across the country. So we're all trying to promote the breed. And there's others that are making big journeys to the 2 breeders that did do the import and taking genetics back to their respective nooks of the country. So there's an effort now, and it feels really good to see it happening here, that people are getting interested in preservation again here.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, and guys, we are going to get a little bit more into Loretta's journey of being able to transport all those pigs across the country later in this swine chat. So stay tuned. Be proactive in this. Be engaged. I really like the comment that you had said earlier, Rachel, about pigs having this dynamic relationship with other aspects of agriculture. So in North Carolina, we had a lot of pig farms that were, and this was way back in the day, like before I was born at least, where you had pig farmers that were had field crops, or maybe they had a neighbor had field crops, let's say peanuts or soybeans, some type of edible food crop that had already been harvested, and then they just let the pigs out. Mm-hmm. The pigs would glean what was left. That was their way of fattening up the hog. And so, one of the things I always tell people about pigs is that it is truly the most widely consumed meat all across the world. Now, chicken got us beat by volume, but we ain't talking about chicken today. We ain't talking about chicken today. Pigs are the most widely consumed all across the world. And so, I think the palatability of pigs and pork really goes well with just about anything. Anyways, we're going to talk about pork and pigs a little bit. I had another question. I wanted to ask, what have been y'all's experiences with Old Spot? In terms of experiences, I mean, successes that you've had with the breed, things you really like about the breed, some failures, things that you're like, oh man, if I could change one thing, what would it be? As well as the pork, because it's a pig. We ain't raising pigs to be cute, we're raising pork. So I want you to talk about that as well. And Loretta, you can go first.
Well, it's hard to talk about your failures, but basically breeding these pigs was our first experience as breeding any sort of animal, be it livestock, or we hadn't even ever had kitties or puppies. Okay, so we started off not knowing much about it. And so just not what cost us a really nice boar, and I'll say it, and I still even, it brings me to tears, but what cost him his life was our failure to understand, even in our really cool climate that we have up here, that he needed to have better shade. We separated him from his female, put him in a pen, and it just happened that we had a heat wave, which are rare here because I live close to the coast and it's usually foggy and moist. And we lost him. And that was what I attributed it to. So I beat myself up for a long time on that one. But then your successes are, there's rarely anything cuter than a new litter of piglets, especially when they have little floppy ears that jingle when they run and they're speckled. And so they're beautiful. They're a friendly, funny breed. They're smart. They're good mothers. I feel safe around them, even though you still never turn your back on one. But they're just a delightful breed. And I'm so glad that we overcame a lot of those initial ignorances and have gotten better and can pass on the lessons we've learned to others.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. First off, Loretta, I just want to say thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability. Not too many people will acknowledge I made a mistake and it cost the life of one of my livestock. But the fact that you just did that, I think will let all these people who have failed and done the same thing to feel like, oh, I'm not the only one. This is just a part of farming. Farming is a learning experience, and so thank you again for your vulnerability on that. Rachel, what have been some of you can start with successes or failures, but everyone can go first. But what has been some of your experiences as a farmer of Gloucestershire Old Spots, failing and succeeding, and also the pork.
Yeah. So I actually started with a trio of unregistered pigs. I didn't really know what the purpose was to get papers. They said, well, if you're just breeding them for meat, then you don't need registered stock. Nobody really cares about that. And I said, okay, I was brand new to farming, brand new to pigs. And, it was a few years down the road, actually, when I kept looking into the Livestock Conservancy, I realized that my pigs didn't count to your numbers. That they because we can't trace them, because there's no way to know for sure that it's a purebred old spot or what line it is. Are you inbreeding, things like that? And so that's when I began to get a little bit more serious about purchasing pedigreed pigs, and kind of phased my original breeding stock out from that point. But they really taught me a lot. They had too much patience with me, probably. They were very kind. As we all do when you're young and starting out, you make a lot of mistakes, and you just kind of lean on some good animals and you get through it together. But yeah, I mean, the pigs are amazing. They're great mothers. They keep condition on really easy. I mean, I've never had to wean a litter early because of the condition of a sow. I mean, milk just fine and things like that. They're easy to load into the trailer. And, you wanted me to talk about pork, which I could talk about for quite some time. But we sell at the farmer's market here in Kentucky. And, we're selling old spot pork every week. And I tell my customers that, every weekend I said, it's because people buy purebred heritage pork that we're able to sell breeding stock. that were able to sell pigs to farmers in Virginia and Texas and Ohio and Kansas and places like that. It's because they're buying, the cull animals. Not every pig in a litter is meant to be a breeder. What are you supposed to do, with the other 6 piglets or 4 piglets or whatever that don't make the cut? Those have to have somewhere viable to go, particularly somewhere economically viable for you to, to keep raising these pigs.
Keep talking, Rachel. Keep talking. You are preaching to the choir. Keep talking. Man, well, before you do that, Brittany, I am pretty sure we got some questions. We better have some questions.
We do have some questions. How did you know? All right, let's see what we got here. Dorothy, thank you for watching today. She says, wow, oldest old school pigs. Love it. Sharon says, thank you for tuning in today, Sharon. The day has brought challenges, yet I made. I guess we all have challenges. Sharon is also excited about pigs. Yay! Hi, Karen. Thanks for tuning in today. She says, how do I start to pedigree pigs?
Ooh, that's a good question. Rachel, Loretta, would y'all like to talk about that real quick? And y'all can pick who wants to go first. Whoever feels like more of an expert on that question.
Loretta, you would probably have a little bit more background knowledge into that.
So, start with purchasing where your source is. Look at your source and make sure that they are a part of, there's 2 Goss breed associations in the country. Make sure they're a member of one or both so that what you purchase can have a pedigree to begin with. It's really hard to backtrack later, although we do try to help people out if they can trace and prove that their pigs came from pedigreed stock. It's a long haul. It's not always successful, but if it can be proved, then they can get papers. But it's very difficult and somewhat expensive sometimes because you may find that you have to pay for the registrations for a couple generations in order to register yours because somebody dropped the ball on the lines in between.
All right, great
But
question.
easiest to start by purchasing those that are registrable, because the other thing is when you buy from a reputable breeder, you can also count on them picking out the best for you because they know you are selecting breeding stock and not just any pig from the litter. There's differences, as Rachel discussed earlier. You pick your best characteristics and body types for breeding when you choose out of that litter who qualifies.
That's a great question.
One thing I'd also add to that is, instead of having let me go on Craigslist and find I can't tell you how many people have bought pigs, breeding stock off of Craigslist. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. What I am going to say is we got to do better. That also includes the breed associations have to do a better job in making sure that they are spotlighting farmers who are breeding to standard. And so I think one of the important things is making sure that if you're wanting Old Spot or if you're wanting a different heritage pig breed, making sure that you go to that association first, saying, hey, what breeders would you recommend? What are some breeders in my area? And for the breed associations that are watching, make sure your lists are up to date. Also, if you're thinking about buying breeding stock and you can't get a hold of anybody, let me know. Send me an email. I will call them myself. So yeah, anyways, not trying to threaten anybody, but yeah.
That is great. Let's see. What else do we have? Jean says, well, thanks for tuning in today, Jean. She says she loves listening to you guys and she's learning so much. We're so glad you're here. Crystal, thanks for tuning in today. Breed the best and eat the rest. That is correct.
You got it.
Motto. Crystal. That's a motto right there.
Dorothy says, oops. important for breeders to have a pork market. Got to eat them to keep them alive. So we say, eat them to save them.
Mhm.
Everybody's preaching today. It's great. I love it. Elizabeth, thanks for tuning in today. If there are no breeders near you, can these pigs be shipped?
Woo! Loretta, Rachel, y'all got this. Go ahead, break it down for me.
I mean, I have never.
Yes, they can.
You can ship semen fairly easily. There are more breeders than are on some membership lists and things like that. So just because you look on a registry and you don't see a breeder in your state doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't someone in the area breeding registered or registerable animals. So like Ryan was saying, it might be worth asking someone in the association, is there somebody that isn't even on this list that I might be able to get in touch to? But Loretta, do you want to go ahead and talk about your travel experiences?
So before we did this trip, I know in the past, pigs have been shipped, young weanlings, by air, like you would ship a dog. You had to buy an airline approved crate, etc., and make sure you bought their ticket. Nowadays, with everything that's going on, I'm not sure if airlines will fly them anymore, and people have had them shipped. There are shippers who ship livestock and animals, so you have to find shippers and get their prices. But you can do that, and it ends up a little expensive for you, but it's doable. But come last October, this past October, at the end of the month, we did, at the urging of the GASA association that I belong to, when they realized that all those pigs I'd imported, the generations are still mostly in my farm or my area. What they did is our registrar got in touch with interested folks, and she used the various computerized tools to do hypothetical matings with what I had available. And she did a whole lot of work to be able to match up pigs I had available with customers in hubs in 7 different states. So those hubs is where we went from California through Iowa, Wisconsin, Virginia, Louisiana, Kentucky, Arizona, Southern Cal. We went through all those different states to drop off pigs at hubs, and then other people who had reserved those pigs came and picked them up. So we were able to offer them at a much reduced shipping rate by doing it this way, and we were able to spread the genetics in a wide arc circle or through the country. So it was a very rewarding thing to do. Little grueling because we did those 7,000 miles in 9 days. So
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh God!
And we aren't spring chickens. We'd get up and kind of rub each other's backs. Anybody who's driven in an old diesel pickup truck knows they're not cushy.
Oh man!
What a trip. We'll have to hear more about that. All right, we've got some more questions. Let's see. Can you breed to pedigree standards from an unpedigreed piglet?
You can certainly breed to,
Sure you
up
can.
to the standards, but that doesn't mean that you'll get papers once you make the confirmation, which kind of goes back to one of the questions we answered earlier. Whether to start with a pedigreed pig or if you can research back enough generations to fill in those gaps.
One thing I'd also add is, I think we've talked about this before. It's important that, if you're going to go through this process of paying, if you're thinking about shipping, right? That's a lot of money, so making sure you get quality stock. I know one problem all breed associations are having is folks who think they can kind of fool people or fool the system and sell the runts of the litter, sell breed stock that does not meet the standard. Sure, is it purebred? Yes, it is purebred. But does it meet the standards? No. So that's why it should go towards meat rather than towards breeding, actual breeding population. Because once you do that, you're going to have inferior quality and you're going to have to start from scratch all over again, right? Whereas you could just buy you can just buy a purebred pig that's up to standard. And what you're really doing is you're buying that farmer's efforts, blood, sweat, and tears, right? You're paying for that. So if, the prices will pricey, just remember, they put a lot of work into making sure that pig meets the standards and continuously meets the standards. Even if you get a purebred pig or a good breeding pair, in order to continue that, you still have to select for quality. So that's super important. That's something that no matter what breed association you're in, whether it's pigs, horses, chickens, being able to make sure that you have good breeding stock and maintaining that is so important. Anyways, I'm done.
Excellent. Let's see. Matthew, thanks for tuning in today. He says, losing history from pedigreed associations is a problem across the breeds. So y'all are not alone. It's happening to a lot of people. Let's see. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for tuning in today.
Selection. Yes, Kathy. Yes. American guinea hog woman right there. Yeah, Kathy, she's a pro at that. She's going to actually be on our Swine Chat at the very last Tuesday of the month. So, again, if you're interested in American guinea hogs, she will be there. All right, go ahead.
Let's see. It looks like we've got a lot of chat. I'm looking for some questions. Hi, Amy. Thanks for tuning in today. She says, good chat, guys. Large black breeder here, but here to support my fellow heritage swine breeders and organizations. We're so glad you're here supporting everybody. Everybody's so supportive in the swine group. This is wonderful.
Oh, yeah. We're humble people because pigs have humbled us. They do a really good job humiliating you and humbling you. So, we were very down to earth people, just as the pig. That's why, in case you weren't know.
Let's see. Hi, Seth. Thanks for tuning in today. What's the grow out time to reach 150-pound hanging? How many pounds of feed per day to maintain breeding stock?
That depends on a lot of factors.
It depends.
There are some farmers who feed almost no purchased grains, and they feed, apples and forage and alfalfa and things like that. And then there are other people who are doing, it's their full ration and it's, 5 pounds a day or something like that. But I'm not going to say, this is the number for an old spot because it just depends. And even in one system, it will vary on genetics. The grow out time, we harvest a little bit later than some other people. I'm usually processing around 9 to 10 months. But again, that depends on a lot of different factors and everybody has their own kind of formula. Loretta, when are you harvesting?
So I basically do not sell meat. I sell animals. So I sell weaners mostly to those who are going to raise them up. I sell higher volumes of weaners to others who have methods of growing, the organic, the non-soy, non-corn. And so they have customers for that market. But I live in an area where there is no close. I have to drive several hours to USDA abattoirs and meat cutters in order to sell meat. So I don't do it. That being said, all my pigs, I don't have the luxury of pasture. I just have a few acres here where my pens are. So I feed solely a 16% pig pellet that's formulated as gestation, lactation. Everybody gets it. So for the family, when I raise a meat pig, they're usually eating about 5 or 6 pounds, depending on their size. If it's a castrated male, he may be eating 6 pounds a day. And maybe at 7, 8 months, he is about 250 pounds. What I would call bacon size, because most processors, they have automated slicing machines and they don't want to take your smaller pig for bacon, which is most people's primary focus or first thought when they have a pig is they want bacon. So they have to have a thicker belly. Well, anyway, at about 7-8 months, and I try not to have them too fat because they can get fatter sooner if you feed them more, but then you have a small ham and a big thick layer of fat around it. So I try to go a little longer, less amount of food so that they work more on marbling and inner muscular fat than outer fat. Anyway, they're always good. The meat is dark and rich. The fat is sweet. That's what people tell me. I've even had chefs come and buy little wieners from me for roasts and just to test out a heritage breed, and they say it was so good, it was sweet. So that's eating pellet. I wish I could have pasture that would really help and with the feed bill, but I don't. But that's what I do. A breeding sow, they require more feed just to maintain their condition, about 8 pounds a day if they're pregnant and have no litter, unless they've really gotten thin with their litter. I just take them away from any boars and feed them up. So when a sow has a good sized litter, I may be feeding her 20 pounds a day if she's kind of on the smaller side or the leaner side, and I'm not quite ready to take the pigs off her. So the other thing that happens sometimes too is they're such great moms. They'll nurse any other sow's piglets that happen to be in the area. So you can have some piglets favoring one mother over the other, and she'll get thinner and the other one has plenty of condition left on. So that happens, and everybody just has to get fed more unless I can separate her, which is hard at that time. So usually I just pour feed into them till I can take the piglets away and then work on reconditioning whoever needs it.
Woo! Woo! That's knowledge. That is wisdom right there. I also have a lot to add, but I know we are very limited on time, so I will try not to give all that I know. So one thing I really appreciated you mentioning, Loretta, is having the opportunity to really think about what can I feed the pig, what works for my system. Rachel, you're doing something a little different than what Loretta's doing to maintain pigs, right? Yet it's still valid. Yet it still works. And I think one of the beautiful things about farming is that one answer might not work for you. Someone else's answer might work. But you can't necessarily say that, well, that worked for me, so that's the only way it works, right? There are a lot of people that get really dogmatic about, thinking, oh, well, this is the only way to raise pigs, whatever other species, for really being able to see, like, no, I need to explore, experiment with what it means and what it looks like to raise pigs for me, with my context, with my limitations, with my weather patterns and conditions. If you're thinking about doing like breeding stock, one thing I always tell people, usually you have to look at it by, every 100 pounds. So they'll eat a certain amount per every 100 pounds. And that depends on whether they are lactating versus whether they are in gestation, right? So if they're lactating, they're making milk, and they have these little leeches called piglets that are stealing all of their nutrients and resources. And the cows freely give it away because they love their piglets until they start feeding and eating their feed, and then they'll like flop them 20 feet in the air because, like, hey, get out of my feed, kid. Anyways, and so it's really important that you're able to really see, like, okay, how much is my pig eating? Just get a lot of feed and measure out. Okay, I got 2 cups, 3 cups. I put in 5 pounds. Let's see how much they eat in a day. And whatever's left over, I can kind of minus that, right? Good rule of thumb, though, for me, and one thing I teach people, whether it's in the States or whenever I go to East Africa to train pig farmers there, is, somewhere around 1.5 pounds for sows that are gestating every 100 pounds. So times 1.5 or times, like, if let's say your sow weighs 300 pounds, right? So then that's 3 times 1.5 if they're gestating. Now, if they are lactating, then it can be somewhere between 3.5 pounds every 100 pounds to 4 pounds every 100 pounds that sow weighs. And so also what variates that is not just the breed, it's not also just the genetics for that livestock, it's also weather, right? So if it's cold outside, your pig wants to get warm, right? So it's going to eat more food just to maintain its core temperature, right? So you also have to keep that in mind. When I go over to East Africa, it's hot. So pigs tend not to eat as much because it's hot, right? That's why their grow out's a little different than over here in North Carolina versus, in Alaska. I'm pretty sure someone's raising pigs in Alaska. If you're raising pigs in Alaska, say hi. I'd love to meet you. But yeah, those are some kind of things that you're thinking about. Farmers are scientists. I want to make that clear. You are a scientist. You're going to be doing experiments, trial runs. Most of your stuff's not going to work the first time, right? But the more you do it, the better you get at it, and you're still fine-tuning these things. That's not just with feed, that's with genetics. Not just with genetics, it's with pasture management. Not just with pasture management, it's with how do I not stress out about raising pigs that are getting on my nerves? So always keep those things in consideration. All right. Anyways, I'll pass it back out to Brittany if we have any more questions.
We do. They're still coming in. Let's see.
Woo! Yeah.
Hi, Baga. Thanks for tuning in today. We're so glad you're listening. Let's see. Hi, Charlie. Thanks for tuning in today. Charlie says, do you find that customers are willing to pay more for heritage meat?
That depends on a lot of things. Depends on your area. So, I live in rural Kentucky. My neighbor might not be willing to pay more for heritage meat, but when I drive 45 minutes north to the city, they'll definitely pay more for heritage meat. And I find that once people try it, like Loretta was talking about, it is so night and day. I mean, you just have to think of it like a completely different animal than you have ever had. If you have not had heritage pork, then you haven't had pork. I don't know what you've been eating. It's like paper mache, but so you have to find your marketing niche and your area. The one thing that you might have trouble with, if you're selling purebred heritage pork, opposed to somebody in the farmer's market booth next to you selling crossbred heritage pork or like a 4-way cross, okay, how are we going to justify a slower grow out time or a little more feed for a purebred animal that, that is rolling into conservation efforts when we're trying to compete with, somebody raising an F1 cross for hybrid vigor or a 4-way heritage cross, and it's all, according to the customer, heritage pork. But, though there are a lot of other factors that we as farmers have to kind of work up from when we decide, based on our conscience that, yes, we want to, we're committed to purebred animals. So in some places, yes, people will definitely pay more, but like most questions, it just depends.
That's the rule of thumb, folks, is it depends. I always tell people, well, what breed should I raise? What kind of market should I go into? It depends. I don't know where you're at, what you're doing, what your financial situation looks like. I don't know. So being able to have that kind of thought process of, I need to look at the factors and see where I line up with these factors. And then I can pick a breed or a farmer that's tailored to those specific factors. Rachel, you were about to lead into one of my other questions that we're going to get on in later. So hold on just a little bit. We're going to get to it. Yeah, next question.
All right. Hi, Crystal. Thanks for tuning in today. She wants to know, she's looking for a boar. If her gilts are 3 months old, by the time they're ready to be bred, what is the appropriate size / age boar she should use?
Kind of depends. I can kind of adjust that a little bit. It depends on how big your girls are. So in about 5 months, they'll be 8 months old. That might be about the earliest I breed. They tend to come into heat at 6 months. The rule of wisdom says let them pass by their first heat, so start looking at 7 months. But you also want to look at how hefty they are at 7 months, because if they're still too light, that they can get hurt during breeding. So I wait till mine are a little more of a robust 250, 275 pounds, and have at least passed a heat. So that puts them about 8+ months old when I first breed my gilts. And at that point, they're pretty strong. And I keep my boars lean, even though Goss are prone to fat. They breed longer and are healthier and are more successful breeders when I keep them leaner, which is difficult because they want to eat more. And of course, when they're with their girls, they get fed a lot more. So it all depends on the size of the boar. You can say age-wise, he's probably got his full mojo in at about 8 months old. Again, they'll start trying to breed at 6 months old, a boar. And usually if they're successful, the litters can be small. So they get maybe another month of practice, they get better at it, and they get higher, their sperm count goes up too, because their litters tend to be bigger. So look for maybe starting your boar on a sow when he's at least 7 months old, and work him up from there. After that, a sow will do a lot, or a gilt will do a lot to try to help with success. If the boar is a little heavy for her, for example, I've had some lean against a post to kind of take some of the weight off to help him out because her legs are getting tired. I've had some kind of get in unusual positions to help the boar out. I'm sure you've seen this too, those of you who've bred, what lengths both will go through to try to be successful. So as long as he's just not overly big for her, and you can tell when he's overly large because she doesn't want to stand for very long, or she starts getting tired and she'll walk away. So that might be a good sign that this boar is too heavy for her. As far as too light, I haven't seen too light. If they can reach, they'll be successful. And like I say, she'll do a lot to help him reach if she's a lot older than him.
Good question.
Yeah.
All right.
Totally PG-13, guys. Totally PG-13.
That was good. Let's see. Matthew says experimenting with resources and experience is the adventure. So farming is an adventure. Baka says, in this current economy, COVID and all, can it be or is it profitable to just raise pigs, then sell them by the herd or pair?
To just raise pigs, I guess you mean like at a homestead scale. I mean, I would say profitable would be an odd word to apply to a homesteading type. We'll call it theology. If you're selling pork, you know that last year your sales probably doubled or increased significantly. Our market sales were fairly close to doubling. We could not keep up with demand. And that stayed steady. We had a lot of concerns, through the spring, wondering what that demand would look like come fall, come winter. But we're doing an outdoor market year round, and we're still having, significantly greater sales this year, even this past Saturday, than we were last year. And I don't know how long that will last. But we're just going to kind of ride the wave as long as we can, and hopefully gain some new customers along the way. I'm afraid I don't quite understand the question in particular, though.
What I can say something,
raising pigs, yeah.
Maybe I hope I'm interpreting you right. Profitable raising pigs and selling them by the herd or pair. I think so there are some people that are just farmers at farrow wing, and then they'll sell off their piglets to another farmer or to Well, usually it's another farmer actually, and so some people really feel more comfortable with just breeding and raising weaners, and then they don't want to be a part of that grow out. Because you think about growing out a pig, it's super expensive. You know, I got some farmers who will sell some of their stock as weaners to pay for the pig feed for the ones that they're growing now. You know, so that's an option that you can do. In terms of profitable, the way I look at profitable is I don't look at can I make a living off of it, right? I'm looking at does it go above breaking even? And during COVID-19, with a lot of the farmers I talked to, they can't find pigs, right? The people who are breeding pigs, whether it's heritage or if it's your weird crosses that I also love because they're also pigs. You know, you can make a lot of money out of it if you market it right. And the important part is managing your feed. That's the important part because 60% of your cost around that of your cost is going to be related to feed. And if you don't have a good grip on how expensive your feed is, or managing that feed, or finding alternatives, if you're interested in that, then it can be more expensive and less profitable. So always keep those kind of factors in mind when you're thinking about breeding pigs as weaners and then selling them off to another farmer. But good question, really good question.
All right, looks like we've got one more that just came in. Hi, Cole. Thanks for tuning in today. We're so glad you're here. What do you look for in a slaughterhouse or abattoir?
That's an amazing question. I have been to close to probably 6 or 8 butchers in my state when we started farming. And there are many of them that I have been to once and not returned to. And I mean, we're really lucky that 3 or 4 years ago we had a butcher open up about 35 minutes from our house. And they just happened to be amazing, which is the other great thing. The things you want to look for, can you walk through? You know, go talk to the owner. First off, will they talk to you? I have had
Will
butchers
they return your calls?
Yeah, I will. That's important too. But you know, I have had plenty of butchers. You know, they have little respect for me because I'm a young woman. You know, and that can be very frustrating. But you know, so will they answer your questions? Will they engage a conversation? You know, when you walk up to them and say, you know, I'm a farmer and I'm looking for a new butcher. You know, can I walk through your facility? Can I go back and look at hanging carcasses? You know, you might not be able to get through the whole entire building due to restrictions and things like that, especially right now. You know, but beforehand, is that something that they would allow? And my butcher, you know, I'm really lucky. You know, I can go in, I can look at my carcasses and I can look at the fat cap and go, okay, you know, here's the progress that we're making, or, oh, this, you know, I don't like the way this looks. And, you know, will they accommodate, you know, how accommodating are they to something new or something that they haven't heard of? You know, we wanted to do a new type. We wanted to cure a shoulder and slice it like bacon. We're doing a picnic shoulder because Boston butts sell really well. So we call it cottage bacon. And it sells out like crazy. But, you know, my butcher's standing there on Google on his cell phone and he goes, yeah, okay, we can do that. You know, are they willing to get a little bit creative with you? And of course, right now, there's so many time constraints and they are so pushed. You know, have a little sympathy for them, you know, but under more quote unquote normal circumstances, you know, will they spend the time of day with you? When they make mistakes, because we all do, we're all human, how do they go about fixing those things? You know, you're never going to find a perfect butcher. If you refuse to go to a butcher where someone has said, so-and-so has kept part of my meat, then you will never go to any butcher. Because if you look hard enough, someone has always said that this butcher has kept half of their hog or all of their bacon, you know, and so I kind of don't always pay attention to those. You know, go in, find out for yourself, try the product if they sell it, take home a pack of bacon, see if you like their smoked product or if you like the way that their packaging is, and see if they'll work with you. And if they will, honor your own commitments and be happy to pay a little extra for it.
Good. Yep. Wisdom. Yep. One thing I'd also add to that is making sure, and I think Rachel, you kind of pointed on this a little bit, is they got to have integrity. They got to be honest. And you will see that as they might make a mistake. When I was farming, there were times where they kept the skin on the belly that they sliced in the bacon. Why would you do that? So then when it cures, the skin is like rubber, right? Like, who will eat that? A dog will eat that, right? A dog could eat that, but humans aren't going to eat that. So those packs are ruined. So during that time, just asking like, hey, FYI, I realized the skin's on. I know on the cut sheet, I definitely did not say skin on my bacon. No one does that. Why did you do that? And them really being amicable, saying, hey, sorry about that. We had a mistake. We were training somebody. They made a mistake. We'll cover the cost or the worth of that product. All right, cool. Sounds good. I appreciate that.
So I have a quick 2 cents.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, Loretta.
If I can add to that. So one thing to remember, at least here, and I think it's fairly true across the strait, you would know, Rachel, but the abattoir is different from the meat cutter. It's a different business. Usually isn't the same facility. So if you are going to sell meat, like I mentioned before, you take your live animal into your abattoir. That's what I would call the slaughterhouse. And they have to be USDA certified if you're going to sell the meat. And here, when you ask, where do you look for or what do you look for? I just look for one because they're so far away. The nearer ones, they don't last very long because it's expensive. You have to pay for a USDA inspector at all times on your premises. So you have to have the volume to justify that cost. And then some of them may pull some things. And you've all heard, they let that cow in with the cancerous eye and they were discovered and boom, they're shut down or fined. So they shut down because they can't pay the fee. So that's kind of what they have to deal with in the slaughterhouses for USDA. So you find that one first that is even there and has maybe been there a while, has a good reputation. If they've been there a while, they've been able to, I would think, follow directions and guidelines and regulations for a long enough time to still be there. And then your meat cutter, if you're going to sell the meat again, he has to have a USDA inspector on site as well. So again, how long has he been there? Like Rachel said, I go. We don't sell USDA. It's just for our own freezer, or I'm recommending family members. And so I go test out their bacon and their ham and their sausages. And that's how we find really good butchers, meat cutters, meat curers that are not USDA to do it for family and friends. But you would do the same thing if you're going to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Except USDA.
If you're looking for a processor, ask them what's their inspection grade. Is it county level? Where if it's county level, your meat's going to come back and says not for sale. If it's state or if it's USDA, if it has a USDA stamp on it, you can sell it across other states. So if you live right on the border between another state that might have a better and bigger market than your state, you're definitely going to need to have a USDA process. And so always keep that in mind when you're considering a lot of factors. One thing I would recommend is talking to specialists, experts, your local extension, maybe not your local extension, your state level extension agents might be able to help you out with that. Niche Meat Processors Network is really able to help you out with that. I know there are some states that are trying to get their state inspected processors to be up to USDA standards. And so we're really working on that, especially with COVID-19. So be on the lookout with that within your state or your county. Cool. Next question.
Let's see. I've got one more in here. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for tuning in today. Is it more profitable to sell registered piglets or just feeders of whatever mixed breed? She raises Idaho pasture pigs.
Oh, Idaho pasture hogs. All right. Go ahead, ladies.
I mean, personally, at least in my area, the market for feeders isn't great. So there's just not a lot of profit margin for feeders. You know, like Ryan was saying early on, it's like, well, if I can, get rid of a few pigs, have a few less mouths to feed, and get a little cash early on to supplement the feed bill, that's really the push for me to sell feeders. Since I have a pretty good market otherwise. I mean, registered piglets definitely have a bigger margin than feeders, for at least in my area.
Loretta?
But then again, the whole litter isn't going to be registerable. You select.
Right.
So maybe only the top 2 or 3 piglets out of a litter of 8 are going to be registerable to me. Right. So in my area, and what I would sell a goss for, a weaned goss at 3 months old, $150 to $175. A registered, selected for confirmation, and with the paperwork is $400.
Y'all heard that, right? Y'all heard that. Hey, one more time, Loretta. One more time.
That's I go by kind of the standards of what we try to keep in line in the GASA organization with what's going on in other states, so we either don't undercut each other and things like that. So that's my range here, but yet that maybe 150 for a 3-month-old feeder is expensive for some, because they come to me all the time, want to wheel and deal and get him for 75, which doesn't cover the feed of his mother. So
yeah.
Like he said, there's a very low profit margin, and people still think, especially old schoolers, that it's cheap to get a piglet from a farm,
Right.
And it is not.
Yeah, there are a lot of hobby level breeders out there selling feeder piglets. I mean, for less than you can buy the feed for. I'm like, I don't know, y'all just like working 2 jobs. I'm not really sure. They're expensive to feed, and there are a lot of feeder piglets out there for sale that really, I mean, at least depending on what they're feeding, I can't make the math work that it would cover costs.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what age are they weaning? What are they feeding? Are they, are they vaccinating or deworming? What's their setup like? It's probably worth it. You get what you pay for. And when you buy from somebody who's registering breeding stock, you can pretty well know they're taking good care of their animals. And there are a lot of hobbyists who are doing great work too. But, if you're shopping on Craigslist or something like that, you're going to see the gamut. And, you'll always see in spring somebody selling piglets around here for, $40 or $50. And I don't know how they're making any money.
Yeah.
Probably because they feeding them bags of whole peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they got. That's all they're feeding them. That's probably why. Oh yeah, sure thing. I think part of the reason with you, and this brings up such a good conversation about how when you don't understand marketing and business, when you don't understand your cost, people will just make up prices. It'll be like, oh well, this farmer's selling pigs for that much. Surely can I pay the exact same, or sell for the exact same price? And it's just like, but what are your actual costs? Are you even making money off this, right? And if you are making money off this at such a low rate, it begs to ask, how? Let me go to your farm. Let me see what your sow's condition look like. All right, why are they nothing but skin and bones?
And am I going to be able to buy piglets from you? Am I going to be able to count on piglets from you in 2 years or 3 years? Are you still going to be breeding in that time? Or are you going to get burnt out and decide that you're tired of spending all of your extra money on your pigs and that you want a new hobby? But yeah.
Preach it. Preach it. All right. So I know you guys I think we had like 20 questions from everybody. So I want to ask one last question just for me and my sake. No, I'm just kidding. For everybody else. So, me and Rachel, when I first joined the Livestock Conservancy, we had a really good conversation about heritage swine. And I think probably 5 minutes into my conversation with Rachel, I was like, yeah, she knows what she's doing. She's a real one. She's someone I can count on. It doesn't take that long, especially when you know a lot about pigs. It doesn't take that long to vet people. Mm-hmm. And so, me talking with Rachel, she talked about how there is this attempting growing movement for what is called Heritage Swine Initiative. So Rachel, can you just give people a highlight of what that is right now and what you're trying to do and who you're working with to try to get this off the ground?
Sure. Well, it started about 2 years ago. I was at a clinic put on by the Conservancy at Purdue, and I happened to be sitting across from the president of the Large Black Association, and we were just chatting, and we were just talking about our struggles, that breeders are, there's just a lot of turnover, that people come in, buy a trio, breed for a couple of years, and then they're out. That you're trying to post to Instagram, but your volunteers just don't have time. Just the regular things that our associations are struggling with. And I walked away from that conversation, and I thought, okay, the gossip board, we're meeting all the time and we're trying to solve these problems. The Large Black Association is having their board meetings. We're all spending all of this time trying to solve very similar, if not the same problems. And, these pigs really don't have that kind of time. If we're able to network and communicate and come together, to work cooperatively to solve some of these issues, and like we're talking about, there's not always a great difference between old spots and large blacks if you're talking about good breeding practices, or if you're talking about a feed regimen. Could we get together heritage hog growers in a state or in a region to do a class on AI, or to do a class on the ABCs of breeding or something like that, because it's not going to be that vastly different from breed to breed. And so I got this idea of a cooperative, basically an umbrella organization that we could kind of nestle each of the associations under to work towards some of these goals, so that we would have the time to educate new breeders, so that we would have the time, to mentor people and to connect people, to do classes, to do, to have a pig in front of you and say, what's good conformation, opposed to looking at it on a screen, see it in 3 dimensions. How would that change the way that we go home and breed? And I'm really excited about it. It has actually become my senior year research project at school. I'm in the Wendellberry Farming Program of Sterling College. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. So I'll be spending the next few months working really hard on that. But I've been working with Kathy Payne, who commented earlier. She's actually one of the readers for my project, and she's been absolutely amazing. But, I walked away and I said, well, I have a million ideas of what this could become, of what I think that the associations and what the members and the individual breeders need, but I don't really know, because I understand that I have a very limited perspective. And so I'm finalizing some survey questions right now that I'm hoping to send out to each of the associations and to individual breeders, so that we can get a good grasp on what do people need to be successful? What do they want? Do they even want to work together on something like this? Or are they like, no, it's a waste of time, go find some new dream lady. But it's so important. And, the pigs don't have time for us to sit around in board meeting after board meeting, discussing the same things and solving the same issues, and I feel like if we can keep our focus on the animals and on preservation and conservation, and we can put aside, the humanness of it. I tell people all the time, there's a reason I work with pigs and not people. But, if we can set aside the human aspect of it, and keep our focus on the pigs, I think we can make a lot of progress together. And I'm just real excited about it.
Woo! Yes, Rachel, yes. And I'm glad you ended off with saying, this is why I work with pigs and not people. I can't tell you, like, with pigs, it's just straightforward. Like, you're like, I can't move you. Literally, you weigh too much. You're stubborn. All right, you're kind of like a human, but I can understand you better. I can understand other people. But one thing that I've noticed as breed association manager for the Livestock Conservancy is that, we can talk about how marketing's an issue or the reason why, this particular breed's not doing well, or, just education, that's the reason why it's not doing well, or yada, 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 yada. Here's the thing, I've talked to way too many of y'all. And one thing I've noticed and realized is that the really big issue is the human issue. Can you get over your pride, not the pride of your pigs or the pride of whatever species you have, but your own personal pride to work towards conservation? So many people are proud of raising heritage pork or pigs or, chickens, but being able to say, can I understand and accept that what I want maybe isn't exactly what everyone else wants, but can I work together with people? Can I compromise in some ways that allows for the breed, the reason why I'm doing all this, to succeed and have success towards conservation efforts, to get those numbers up, so that way they're not on our critical list, that way they're not on our threatened list, that they can be on our recovering list or recovered list. That's what we want to see, and so it's that human element that, I've been trying to help people work through. We finding some success in some areas we're not, and that's okay because no one's perfect. And so it's how do you deal with the imperfections of life and people in order to be able to do the best that you can do with what you have. And so, Rachel, thank you for taking this on as a school project. Like, that's awesome. That's so awesome. I wish I could do that in school. And being able to really see what we can do as a collaborative to be able to find success, not just for one breed, but for all pig breeds, or at least the ones that are interested. Do we have any more questions in the chat? I'm pretty sure we got 50 more questions.
Today is all about the questions, and I love it. Yes, we do have a couple more. Let me see. Let's see. Cole says, this is going back to our conversation a little bit earlier. In a high feeder demand area, if your sow has a mostly female litter, it's still advisable to sell the girls as feeders. Do you trust that the buyers will not use them as breeders?
That's a great question. I know some breeders have just a flat rule that they will not sell gilts as feeders because once it's down the road, you don't have control. Even if you trust the person, even if you vet the person, and even if they say on that day they're not going to use it, they might look at her a year later or something and go, well, I kind of like her. She's sort of sweet. It just depends on, just kind of try to feel your conscience and get to know the person. I'm lucky enough that I usually have enough piglets that I can only sell males as feeders. But if you have a full litter of females and that's what you got to do to get through it, I'd say just be cautious and and if you're selling them without papers, obviously that's feeder quality, and so you do have some solace in that that they're not registered. Because they're not up to the standards, but you have to do what you have to do. And sometimes you have a female heavy litter and got to get through it.
Or turn it into pork.
Yeah.
Loretta, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I know. I sell a lot of female feeders all the time, and I don't. It's hard. I do ask them, "Was your intent to breed?" But a lot of times in my area, for example, there's a perception, like from the Hispanic community, that females taste better, and I think that all goes back to maybe eating uncastrated males or something. So I sell them if they weren't selected as breeders, I sell them as feeders. If somebody comes back with breeder questions, I can look them up. I know because all my pigs are notched. I know their numbers and I know who bought what. I can say, you bought a feeder from me. I'm not going to register that pig for you because you didn't let me know at the time that you wanted breeding stock. That I sold it as feeding stock. Unfortunately, I won't register that for you. So that happens. Or sometimes I sell somebody I saved as a breeder and I've got a feed bill and nobody's buying a breeder. Or nobody wants breeding stock. Nobody wants me to raise a pig to female. So I will sell her. And they unknowingly got a breed quality girl as a feeder. That happens too, because my whole goal is to not keep them on the farm that long. So I have to, look at what I'm feeding, and if I don't have the business, I have to sell them.
And another question I'd even add to that, or a comment I'd even add to that is, even when you are selling to people who are looking for breed quality, and you have like a fine boar. You're like, man, that's gonna be a good-looking bull when you get older, and then you sell them with the intent that they're gonna be bred. That's what the person said that they're going to do, and then you hear a year later, oh yeah, I butchered that one. You know how heartbreaking that is? It's just like I could have kept that. I could have sold that to somebody else who was going to keep it alive. So even as a breeder, it's not just the people who. You can't just trust the people who are trying to swindle you with feeders, but also people who are intentionally asking for breeding stock. You might realize that they didn't keep them for that long. And so that's where you get into this interpersonal conversation where you're having to say, once they're off my farm, I have no control. I must accept that I have no control, and that's the way that you have to go about life. My personal opinion.
Yeah.
Take it as it is.
I do try to give people the caveat, if you buy breeding stock, especially if it's an older gilt or something and you have trouble with it, talk to somebody at the association. If you're not willing to do hormones or something, there might be another breeder who is. See if there's somebody else whose methods or operations might work with that, or try a sow with a different boar and see if that works, because especially if you've got registered stock, it's like every single one of these animals is critical. And don't be too quick to cull your registered stock, especially if you think there's another breeder out there who might be able to work through some of these challenges.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
All right, let's see. We got a couple more. Hi, Travis. Thanks for tuning in today. He says, trying to overcome the mindset of the older farmer that a pig is a pig. It has been his biggest struggle. We have given away samples to help change their minds. I don't know if that was a question, but
yeah, that's what you gotta do. I think people like Jordan Green, me and him both will advocate that being able to sell samples or give out samples, especially if you're at a farmer's market. I think COVID-19 might be a little bit different, but in the past you could be able to give a sample of like, hey, yeah, like try my bratwurst and slice it up. You cooked it literally at the farmer's market, so they're smelling the aromas, they're smelling the sweet fat, and like, what is that? What is that? And you chop it up, and cut it in front of them. It's like, let's try it. And they're like, this is the best pork I've ever had. Of course it is. Of course it is. So that's a good selling tactic, marketing tactic, is that by actually allowing them to have the sample, that one little piece of meat you might sell 5 pounds of pork just from that one piece of meat. So it's well worth the tactic if that's within your COVID guidelines, wherever you're selling.
that's a good point. All right, I think that's our last question. Hi, Donna. Thanks for tuning in today. She says, what is the ideal age for deciding which piglets will be kept in your breeding program and registered versus going to market?
I got this. I'll be quiet.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Really good question. Gosh, because they change as they grow. I've selected some at weaning time when I pull them off and watch how they're growing off the mom, and look at body conformation, teat lines, legs, and such, and have picked out both males and females that, as I kept them later, didn't live up to my selection. And then I've happened to see some that I didn't select take off. It's not always 100% that those you choose end up growing, but I do them at weaning, so I keep them, even though I may have people that say I want them as soon as you pull them off that mom. They want to get close to a suckling as they can for whatever reason, and I say no. I always keep them at least another month because I worm, wean, make sure they're eating on their own just fine, and watch to see how they're growing. So it's during that period that I do my selections typically, and sometimes it's good, and every now and then it doesn't work that way. But most of the time it works at that age because you can watch them in motion. You look for a nice straight back, nice good legs. We care about our little dished up snouts, which is hard to tell at a young age. I still not very good at it. And those types of characteristics. So you do your best, but that's when I do mine. Because that's just about as long as I can keep them.
Yeah, I do the same thing, Loretta. Every now and then you'll have one, that you look at a few months later and you go, where the heck did you come from? Or something like that. But for the most part, you've got a pretty good idea, between 8 and 12 weeks of what kind of quality they are.
Excellent. All right, I lied. We have one more question. Michelle, thanks for tuning in today. She wants to know, why did you choose the Old Spots over other heritage breeds?
I raised 2 feeder pigs. It was the first time I'd ever raised pigs, and they were 3/4 Old Spot, 1/4 large black. And I went through a couple of other breeds at the time, and after that, I decided I was going back to Old Spots. I just fell in love with their floppy ears and their little speckles, and that's kind of what draws you in at first because they're just freaking adorable. But then you get to know them, and they have real personalities. You can really work around them. You can get in with them. I'm never. You always hear horror stories when you tell people you're a pig farmer of, somebody's like uncle or something who got, attacked by some sow or something. But, and people always tell you these terrifying stories that make you question your life choices as some sort of odd inspiration. But, I never have to be afraid of them. I never have to worry about them. I have so many pigs that I just walk up to and they just fall over because they want me to scratch their bellies, which is, you just don't get that in some other breeds. They've got a pretty good balance between meat and marbling, which is another important thing. Some breeds have a lot more lard, and if you have a purpose for it, that's great. And other breeds just don't quite have enough fat for my liking. So the pork itself is a big part in that choice. And since we're doing it for meat, I wanted something that would still have a slow enough growth time to get plenty of flavor on, but still have a respectable carcass in a comparable amount of time that you can make a little money off of.
Loretta?
Similar thing. We had a growing family, so we always had a couple of pigs a year for the freezer, and they were almost always crosses, the blue butts or other York crosses. And I read an article in a magazine. It was either a Countryside or Hobby Farms type of thing on heritage pigs, and I saw the Goss. And so I looked the Goss up just because they looked kind of intriguing and it was a good story. And found some not too far away as feeders, and noticed the difference immediately in raising them because they prefer to just get belly rubs and sleep and eat as opposed to testing your fence lines like these modern crosses. I look at them, the difference between hyper pigs and just laid back, funny. They're just funny, and they're a lot smarter than you think. I underestimated a lot of mine in the beginning because they can open latches and do very smart things. And so that's what I started liking about them, is that they're easy care and easy personalities and friendly to me. I don't like something that wants to charge me or I'm always fixing fences for or something like that. So every now and then when they get out, they come back at dinner time. There's no issue. They know where to come back for their food and their home bodies. So it hasn't been too much of an issue. And that's why I just really like the breed and then look for breeding stock and then learned how to breed pigs.
Good responses. One thing I always tell people is if you have the option in your area, try 2 to 3 different breeds, and then from there and raise them around the same time, at the same time if possible, and just see which ones do you like better, right? Also, before you even get the pigs, if you're thinking about getting Gasa or some of the other breeds or some of the other crosses, whatever, then you should try the pork first. How does the pork taste? Especially if you're raising them for pork, because we're not raising pigs for pets. I don't know if y'all knew that, and so being able to say, "Oh,
You'd
love
be
the
surprised."
Okay, you got some that do. This is not why we're having swine chat. There's a reason why I'm not called pig rind. I'm called pork rind. Anyways, it's really important that you try the actual pork first before even getting the pigs. For some people, like for example, red wattle, it's more of a leaner breed, and I say that very loosely. If you compare it to Duroc, it's not. It's got a lot of fat on it compared to Duroc. But if you compare a red wattle to like a large black or to a mule foot, right? It's more leaner than a mule foot. Mule foot got a lot of fat on it, and that's okay. We still love mule foot, but just being able to say, I like leaner, that kind of lean better. For some people, it's like, no, I like the mule foot. I love that kind of fat that's on it, and I can use that fat to make, soaps and salves and lip balms and candles, whatever. Hey, if you're artsy fartsy like that, definitely consider that. You'll have more lard than you know what to do with. But I think that's also a really good question. So thank you for asking that. I think that's it. Like we went way over time. So over time. Oh my goodness. Brittany, would you like to give us some closeouts before I close out?
Sure. Thanks to everybody for your wonderful questions. We had a great discussion today, so we appreciate you taking the time to listen and to engage with us and write in those awesome questions. Also, big thanks and shout out to all of our members who make Swine Chats possible. We couldn't do it without you. We also couldn't say rare breeds like the Gasa. So thank you. If you're not a member and you want to figure out how to become one and save more rare breeds, please let us know. We'd love to send you information. If you would like to learn more about the Gloucestershire Old Spots of America, we've got an awesome website that you should go to. Rachel and Loretta would love to talk to you about that. Any other things that I need to say?
Well, Rachel, do you want to give a shout out to the think tank on Facebook?
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you're interested in the cooperative idea that I was talking about earlier, there is a Facebook group for that. So I'll just post a link into the comments. Would that work?
Yes, and I can also write it. What's the name of it?
I'll have to find the link here.
We will post the link later.
Heritage Swine Initiative Think Tank. I think that's what it is.
Something like that.
You type that in, you should find it. I think that could work.
Heritage Swine Think Tank.
Yep. Alrighty.
Go there. Check that out.
There you go. Yeah, go check that out. And it's on Facebook. So you try adding that on Instagram, you're not going to find it. Or Twitter, you're probably not going to find it. On Facebook. Great. Well, again, if you enjoyed this content, feel free to, send a little coin our way. It does help to produce more content like this. For those of you who have already supported as a conservation champion or as a regular member of the Livestock Conservancy, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. Your dollars are going towards this amazing, beautiful content where pig people get to laugh and cry and talk about their struggles and educate people. If you're interested in content like that and you are not already a member, definitely consider being a member. We have a conservation champion membership where basically you only have to donate $4 a month. $4 a month, y'all. Starbucks costs more than that, right? $4 a month. And that will equivalent, to like what, $48 for like a full membership. So definitely consider that if you're interested. Other than that, Rachel, Loretta, I so appreciate my time with you on this chat. I have called y'all, I don't know how many times before this, but y'all are doing great work. Thank you for your conservation efforts. They are really showing, especially within the GASO organization. Also, thank you for inviting me to the board meeting. Really great experience there too. With that, I will close this out. Thank you all. I hope you have a good day. And again, we will be back here next Tuesday. And who we have next Tuesday? We're going to have Red Wattle Hogs. We'll have members from the Red Wattle Hog Association joining us next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're interested in learning more about red wattles, definitely come back for more content. But with that, have a good one.
Have a great week, everyone. Thanks again. We'll see you then.